that you need to celebrate failure.
Okay.
You should not denounce failure. And what do I mean by that is you should allow people to experiment. Keep telling people that, look, simply because you have failed in one or two things does not make you a failure. You become a failure the day you stop trying. More often than not, people listen to respond. They listen simply to give a good answer. But what you have to listen is to understand some things which are not being said. You need to have that capability of reading between the lines. We have technology and things related to AI and ML, which are built into our courses. We have big data sciences. We are using big data in just about every domain, be it marketing, be it finance, be it even HR. We are using analytics in every domain.
Right.
For example, I will not sleep till I have exercised for at least an hour every day. I will not sleep till I have written 500 words. And even if those words are garbage, even if they can't be published,
500 words.
500 words. And I will not sleep till I have read at least 10 to 15 pages of a book.
This podcast is sponsored by eManthan Cyber Edu Research and Skills Foundation, a leading organization in government projects and legal, financial, and management consulting services.
A very warm welcome to Intellectual Indians, India's Intellectual Interviews. I'm your host, Sankalp Maheshwari. And today we are going to have the outstanding session. Outstanding because we are having the very, very special guest. The person is a polymath. He's equally conversant and knowledgeable about the concepts of management, about the concepts of negotiations, the business strategic discussions, dramatic arts, yoga, mountaineering, trekking, and whatnot. He's also the Bachelor of Engineering from NIT and also alum and fellow of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, because from where he has completed his PhD. So let's join your hands together for welcoming the conqueror of mountains, the Ansh of Himalayas, Professor Dr. Himanshu Rai sir, Director of Indian Institute of Management, Indore. Sir.
Thank you so much, Sankalp.
Very, very warm welcome, sir, to Intellectual Indians.
It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Sir. So the profile is so versatile and actually I'm fascinated by your leadership skills. So from the engineer working at Tata Steel to the professor and now the director, IIM Indore. How have been this journey, first of all? And secondly, can you share some of the key milestones and the pivotal moments you have lived and you have shaped your leadership style that I want to know?
So first of all, it has been a very satisfying journey, Sankalp. And I've been extremely fortunate that whatever it is that I've dreamt of in life actually did happen. And of course, there are several points of inflection that I can talk about. But let me talk about one or two key points. My journey from the corporate life with Tata Steel, where I spent over 8 years working after my electrical engineering from KREC Suratkal, like you pointed out, which is called NIT Karnataka, was an extremely satisfying journey. Was an extremely satisfying tenure because Tata Steel is an amazing company to work with. And Jamshedpur is a brilliant city to be in. But I was sitting on the top of a Himalayan mountain reading a book, and a particular passage of the book that stuck with me. And that passage prompted me to think about what do I truly want to do with my life? What is my own vision for my own personal life, including my career, etc.? What is my Swadharma? And I had a Bodhi moment without having a Bodhi tree out there. And that is the moment when I decided that I have to help other people reach their potential. And what I realized was that perhaps the world of academia will take me there. And thus started my quest towards getting back to the academic world. So I got down my mountain, I reached Jamshedpur, I wrote CAT, and I resigned. I didn't even wait for the results. And that was simply because I was so sure about what I wanted. That made me very sure about what I did not want to continue to do. Despite the fact, like I said, that Tata Steel was a great company and I did some amazing things while I was in Jamshedpur. So I started a TV channel for Tata Steel in the city of Jamshedpur called Channel T back at that particular point of time. It used to be aired only for the citizens of Jamshedpur. And we used to run it for almost starting with 4 hours a day to almost 12 hours a day.
Oh.
So apart from making steel and apart from my electrical engineering, I managed to do some of that stuff while I was on a special assignment to corporate communications department of Tata Steel.
Okay.
So that was the first inflection point. The second one came in when I came to IIM Ahmedabad, and I tried to figure out as to what would I do my PhD on. My natural course of action would have been to do something in operations research or production methods, etc. But what I realized was that in those 3.5 years, out of the 8.5 years that I spent with Tata Steel, I enjoyed working with human beings more than I enjoyed working with machines.
Right.
And therefore, I said, one of the inevitable characteristics of a bunch of human beings, any collective it might be, is conflict.
True.
So how do you resolve conflicts? And thus started my quest in trying to understand conflict and conflict resolution better, leading to my PhD in negotiation. So that was
my... You have done PhD in negotiation?
Yes, my PhD is in negotiation, and that's what my first book is also titled, Negotiation. I could have been more creative about the title, but I couldn't think of a better title than negotiation itself.
Right.
So that was my second inflection point, which actually pushed me towards this particular subject. And then, of course, I started teaching. I was in the world of academia. After negotiation, I was interested in leadership. I was interested in ethics. So I launched courses like Leadership Through Literature, because I also have a love for literature, and I wanted to marry these two things.
Yes.
And I started a course called Justice, Ethics and Morality,
where
we looked at the philosophy of fairness.
Right.
Now, while I was doing all of this, there was an opportunity for me that came my way in terms of the India campus of SDA Bocconi and Bocconi Milan, which is a great university, one of the top 10 business schools in the world.
Yes.
And I got the opportunity to become the dean of the India campus of Bocconi, and that took me to the world of administration apart from academia.
Okay.
And that's where I realized that perhaps when you are in a position which is administrative and academic in nature, you can perhaps influence more people.
True.
And thus began my quest to do more in my life, and leading to becoming the director of IIM Indore. So those are the inflection points in my journey. But like I said, I've been extremely fortunate that every time I dreamt of something, something happened. The universe, in Paulo Coelho's words, conspired in helping me to achieve whatever it is that I expected to.
True. So the web has been created. The linkages was very actually important, the pivotal in your journey. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So recently, IIM Indore, because of your leadership, it has achieved 3 accreditations. What are these accreditations, first of all? And what was the strategy behind that? How you achieved that? Because it has named Indore, IIM Indore, in the world level.
Yeah, so these are the 3 accreditations of AMBA, AACSB, and EQUIS.
Okay.
So these are world-class accreditations, and any business school that receives it, it's called a Triple Crown institution.
Triple Crown, yes.
And IIM Indore, therefore, is now one of the 3 institutes in India and one of the 100 institutes in the world to have this Triple Crown. What it does is, it first of all strengthens our processes, because each of these accreditations, they look at different elements.
Okay.
One element looks at the overall program structure. One element goes deeper into the program and looks at things like the assurance of learning.
Okay.
The third accreditation looks at the overall strategy and vision of the institution and whether we are actually progressing towards that vision or not.
Right.
So it helps us in introspecting. It helps us in looking at us from a different viewpoint. And it opens up a lot of doors for internationalization. For example, in 2019, I think we had about 20 partner business schools. Oh. And within the last 5 years, we have added almost 35 more. And that is simply because we have the Triple Crown. And now, instead of we approaching international institutions, we have international institutions coming to us.
Right.
They want to visit India. They want to visit Indore. They want to be a part of IIM Indore. They want to do some joint research, some faculty exchange, student exchange, and joint certification programs with IIM Indore. So it's made a huge difference.
Right. So I was going through your Facebook and LinkedIn even. Every day I heard a news. Every day I see a post about some collaborations with the universities, with the foreign universities. So it is actually fascinating for IIM Indore.
But, Sankalp, I am just blessed to have a great team because, I can have all the imagination, I can create all the vision, but unless you have people who are equally passionate to implement all the ideas that I have, nothing is going to really happen. So as I said, I'm blessed to have a great team which actually puts my ideas into actual reality by implementing them quickly.
And that is actually the definition of great management.
Absolutely.
So here at IIM Indore, so what are the innovative programs are being currently running, innovative practices, so that the skills and the personality of the students can be enhanced? So what all programs, innovative side if we look at?
So, IIM Indore has traditionally been a trailblazer. So in 2011, we were the only IIM that started an undergrad program called the Integrated Program in Management right after class 12th. And there were so many naysayers. People did not believe that this program is going to be a success. And you'll be delighted to know that not only is this program a success, but it's an astounding success.
Yes.
Just to give you an idea, we have 28,000 applications this year for 150 seats. So making it almost the toughest exam on this planet.
Yes.
And that was one of the trailblazing moments and a very innovative program. Subsequently, between 2019 and 2024, we have increased the offerings of our executive education programs by 4 times and increased our revenues by 6 times in a period of 5 years. Our collaboration with IIT Indore, where we have a joint degree program in Masters of Science in Data Science and Management, that is one of the most innovative programs. We have started a program which is a Masters of Management Sciences, which is essentially an online 2-year master's program. It's an online program,
completely online.
Which completely online. And there would, of course, be a campus element, but the campus element is a short campus element. And thereafter, we have created a lot of cutting-edge executive education programs which are going to prepare people for the challenges and for the skills that they need in this post-4th industrial revolution world. For example, we have a PG diploma in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Then with our partner institutions, with one of the partner institutions, we have launched a certificate program in sports management. With another partner institution, we are looking at ESG issues. With another partner institution, we are looking at entrepreneurship. And with another partner institution, we are looking at the C-suite leadership skills. So, I can continue, for days together talking about the kind of offerings that I have. However, the point that I'm trying to make is that one of the things that IIM Indore talks about is being contextually relevant. So whatever is the skill set that is required in the future, we make sure that there's an offering. And number 2, we believe in democratization of education. So through our online education programs, we are trying to reach as many people as possible.
Great. So there are n number of courses, if I can relate to right now.
Absolutely.
Whether it is Industry 4 courses, Industry 5 courses, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all are actually the courses of present day.
Absolutely.
Not even the tomorrow, but presently it is required.
Absolutely.
So how you foster the culture of innovation and excellence in the staff, in the faculty members, and how IIM Indore is being differentiated from other top B schools, if I'll say?
I think, Sankal, one of the things, and this would also be my message to people who are in leadership positions, is that you need to celebrate failure. You should not denounce failure. And what do I mean by that is you should allow people to experiment. Many times, people hesitate to do something innovative simply because they are afraid, what if I fail? Am I going to pay for it? Am I going to be censored for it? And if that fear goes away, people do not mind experimenting. And I keep telling my people, my staff, my faculty members, my team members that, please experiment. If you think you have a good idea, go ahead and implement it. If something goes wrong, I will take the blame. But if it is good, fantastic, good for the institute. The only underlying thing is you should have a solid reason. You should have a solid logical backup of suggesting that kind of a program or suggesting that kind of an initiative. And subsequently, you should also put your money where your mouth is, which means you should be able to even implement. You should be willing to do the hard work which is required to actually put that plan into place. So if you do that, number 1, and number 2, if you show by your own behavior. For example, I do not hesitate in taking initiatives. And it's not that every initiative of mine is successful. Sometimes I fail. But that really doesn't matter. You keep telling people that, look, simply because you have failed in 1 or 2 things does not make you a failure. You become a failure the day you stop trying. So that is a culture that I'm trying to actually implement over here. And I think that is a culture which has now gone down and has percolated down to every last person at IIM Indore. And we as a community are willing to experiment, are willing to innovate, are willing to put our best foot forward, and are willing to do the hard work.
Okay. And if in one line, if I'll ask, what is the USP for IIM Indore and what it is?
The USP of IIM Indore, because this is a question I'm asked from all the accreditation bodies when they come for re-accreditation, is that we are very strongly inclined towards and working for nation building.
Okay.
We have identified 5 wicked problems that we believe our country faces, and we are trying to solve those problems in our own little ways. One is the problem of inequality.
Okay.
The second is the problem of urban infrastructure. The third are the problems just centered around rural issues. The fourth is a lack of entrepreneurial spirit, or rather enhancing entrepreneurial spirit. And the fifth wicked problem is that which is centered around environment. Okay. So we have picked up certain initiatives in each of these 5 areas. And by trying to solve those problems, we are trying to strengthen our nation. I think that is the biggest USP of IIM Indore.
I think broadly it covers every aspect what is actually required by India today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So your leadership actually is very fascinating. I have already started with this leadership thing.
You're too kind.
So what were the challenging decisions you had to take in your life journey because of any situation? So can you portray some of the example for that you have taken up that decision which has changed your life?
See, all the decisions at the inflection point were challenging decisions. So the decision to leave a great corporate job, something like Tata Steel, to leave the city of Jamshedpur, where I was settled, was a challenging decision.
Right. And that too before results are out.
That too before the results are out. Oh, that did not please many people.
That was a challenging decision.
People were extremely cheesed off with me for making that decision. That was a challenging decision. The other challenging decision was to actually go back and do a 5-year PhD program, because I was, people say, what was your biggest challenge? Was it that you had to write CAT, etc.? No, CAT was a cakewalk. Yes. Because I was fairly good in, mathematics, English, and data interpretation, logical reasoning. For me, the biggest challenge was actually sitting on a chair for 4 or 5 hours attending the class, because I was not used to it.
Yes.
At Tata Steel, while I was on the shop floor, I used to be moving all the time for those 8 hours that I spent there, and therefore just to sit on a chair.
Right.
That was one of my big challenges. When I took charge as the Dean of Bocconi, my biggest challenge was how to make this institution work, because at that point of time, there were challenges around Bocconi. People in India, the student population, target population, they are mostly fascinated by business schools in the US.
Okay.
They don't know much about the business schools in Europe.
Yes.
And therefore, that was one of the big challenges for me as to how do I make Bocconi, how do I bring out the true potential and what Bocconi stands for into the minds of the people over here.
Okay.
Likewise, when I came to IIM Indore, my biggest challenge was to actually change the status quo. I mean, IIMs have not really been known for their agility.
The strict structure.
We were considered to be very bureaucratic. We were considered to be very slow. We were considered to be very inward looking. And therefore, to bring about that cultural change was a big challenge. But like I said, I've been extremely fortunate that I've been able to have a team of people. I've been able to identify those people who were willing to work with me as a team and bring about all of those changes. So multiple challenges, Sankalp. But I think one of the common things to all of these challenges were that if you had the patience and the perseverance to continue, what people do is they put in effort, which is a one-shot effort, and then they expect big changes to happen. Big changes do not happen in one go.
Right.
You need to have the perseverance, you need to have the resilience, and you need to have what I call as my biggest strength, abnormal levels of patience.
Okay.
But if you have that, those changes happen.
I was actually coming to the point that I really wanted to ask you, what are the top 3 qualities of an effective leader, which helps any leader, any young leader or entrepreneur in their journey?
See, one is what I also have as my tagline, and that is Nishkam Karma.
Okay.
Which means doing your work with a sense of detachedness. Now, it's very difficult sometimes to explain to people as to what does that mean. How can you be passionate while being dispassionate? The whole point is that when you put in your work, don't do it because of what you will get out of it. Do it because you're convinced that that is the right thing to do. So I think that's a most important thing for a leader, not to be too concerned about the fruits of one's actions, but to be focused on the action itself. Provided, of course, like I said, you're convinced that that is the right action. The second is that you need to have a very clear vision for the organization or the collective that you're heading. The third is you need to back your vision with hardcore action. And you need to have hardcore action in terms of an idealized influence, which means your own behavior should reflect the value system that you claim to espouse. If your own behavior is to give you a small example, if I expect everyone to come on time and I myself come to my office at 11 or 12, in that case, my own behavior is not reflecting the value system that I'm trying to imbibe into the people of the IIM Indore community. And therefore, you have to work harder than everyone around you. You have to make sure that you're displaying all of those. And finally, I would imagine that one of the things that you need to have is emotional intelligence. Yeah. So the first part was the spiritual part, where I talked about detachedness. And this part is about the emotional part, which means that you should try and listen to people to understand. More often than not, people listen to respond. They listen simply to give a good answer. But what you have to listen is to understand some things which are not being said. You need to have that capability of reading between the lines, reading the situation well, reading the tacit things. And if you have these four qualities, I think you can be a good leader.
The last point, actually, I do agree with it, because people actually react. They don't respond.
Absolutely.
The important thing is to respond and to read between the lines. That is actually the good point, sir. I wanted to ask, sir, this thing, that because of the innovative practices, now the youth is building their own businesses. Now they are contributing to the economy of India. But many times they fail in their business, in their entrepreneurial journey. So what are the basic mistakes they are doing while pursuing this new entrepreneurial journey? I wanted to ask this.
See, I work with two startups as an advisor. I have tried to guide a few other startups, but because I wasn't very convinced about the product offering or the service offering that they had, therefore I did not continue with them. So in my limited experience, while people have the entrepreneurial spirit, they do not have the conviction in what they are offering. I'll give you an example. So for Matter, everyone starts with a great product, at least it's great in their heads. But subsequently, when the investors start coming in, the investors' demands are different. They would say, hey, hang on, why don't you try doing this? Why don't you try doing that?
They tweak.
And eventually, they tweak. Right. And eventually, to please the investors, the original entrepreneurs, they change their ideas so much that at the end of a year or so, it does not look even remotely close to what they had started with. So either they did not have the conviction in their product to begin with, or they did not have the courage to follow up and to tell the investor that, hey, hang on, I appreciate the suggestions that you're giving me, but this is what I have in my mind. So how about you funding this idea rather than changing the entire idea? I think that is one. Second reason why I've seen many of the entrepreneurial ventures fail is the escalation of commitment. Sometimes when you start, within a few months, you realize that perhaps this is not going to work. But simply because you have invested, either time or some money in it, you keep throwing good money after bad money, knowing fully well that this is not really a viable product. So that escalation of commitment becomes a reason for failure. And finally, the third reason of failure that I have seen is something that I call the recency bias. People only look at the recent economic conditions, the recent successes, and think that a product or service is going to work without realizing that there were certain years before that, or there were certain instances before that where something like this did not work. So that inability to look at a longer horizon, even of the past, and look only at those events which actually support the viewpoint that you have. This kind of a recency bias is also something that leads to failure. So primarily, I would imagine that these are the three things that have led to failure of the entrepreneurs and of the startups that I have seen.
Right. And there's a term in marketing is marketing myopia. When they start loving their product and they don't bring the changes as per the circumstances or change or the changes in the society or the changes in the need. So I think this is one of the reason. I think this is the second reason what you have portrayed.
Absolutely.
That is marketing myopia.
Absolutely.
You've trained around, I think, 25,000 professionals, and you have been associated with the government also, the strategic business collaborations, what you have done till date. I just wanted to ask the common strength, what I say, in the successful people, among the successful people. What is that common single trait you have looked when you have trained the people, when you have trained the civil servants, when you've trained the people from the industry? What is that common single trait among the people?
I wouldn't talk about one single trait, but I would talk about three things.
Fine.
The three common traits that I've seen in successful people is one, clarity of vision.
Okay.
They are very clear about where they're headed, and they are very clear about where they eventually want to be. The second trait that I've seen is a consistent value system.
Okay.
They're pretty steady on their virtues. They may not have a lot of values that they claim to espouse or they claim to believe in, but whatever values that they claim to espouse, they make sure that they stick to them. I mean, they're not the ones who are taking the shortcut. I have seen successful people who have taken shortcuts, but their success then has not been for too long.
Okay.
Eventually, things did not work out. So I think that is the second trait I would talk about. And the third trait is that these people are very resilient, which means that even if they have failed, even if they have fallen, even if they have stumbled, they have gotten up and continued to walk towards the destiny and the direction that they have charted out for themselves.
Right. Very important traits, I think. One should imbibe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have seen the skilling system, the education system has been taking a leap and it is changing. New education policy has paved the way for that even. Do you think that in management studies also, there should be some technical or technological upgradations? As you have said that there is artificial and machine learning also you have inculcated in the courses of PG. What is the requirement of the future? If we'll see the management side, do the courses need to be changed as per the Industry 4 and Industry 5 perspectives?
Absolutely. You see, technology is now a given. Now, what we need to focus on is how to integrate technology.
Right.
That entire debate about whether technology is desirable, whether artificial intelligence is desirable, or the latest debate, should we have ChatGPT or should we ban ChatGPT from educational institutions? It's bizarre.
Yes.
ChatGPT is here. That's water under the bridge. Now, what you have to talk about is how do you educate people into using ChatGPT in a good way, in an ethical way.
Right.
So, for example, a lot of academicians are concerned that ChatGPT will lead to cheating, ChatGPT will lead to people copying, will lead to IPR issues. People are going to stop thinking and ask ChatGPT for all the answers. Well, Google was there doing something very, very similar. That did not bring the intelligence down. The only point is you need to know how to use Google well.
Right.
And also, as academicians, it becomes our job not only to create knowledge through research, but also to curate knowledge.
True.
Because everything which is there on Google is not true.
Yes.
Everything that the ChatGPT spouts out is not true. Sometimes it gives you very bizarre answers.
Yes.
And therefore, as academicians, I think we need to first of all integrate technology into everything that we do. For example, at IIM Indore, not only do we have synchronous courses, online courses, but we are now also building asynchronous courses.
Okay.
We have our own asynchronous studio where we are actually building courses. We are going and bringing technology together. So we have this joint Masters of Science in Data Science and Management along with IIT Indore.
Great.
We have technology and things related to AI and ML, which are built into our courses. We have big data sciences. We are using big data in just about every domain, be it marketing, be it finance, be it even HR. We are using analytics in every domain.
Right.
So technology has to be married. Technology has to be a part. It has to be integrated within the curriculum. It has to be integrated with your pedagogical tools. And it has to be integrated in a way that we help students. For example, ChatGPT is here to stay. And therefore, now what we should be building courses around is prompt engineering.
Right.
How do you give the right prompts to actually make the best use of ChatGPT? How do you make sure that the students acknowledge and give reference saying that, okay, this portion of mine or the ideation actually came from ChatGPT, but the rest of my ideas are original ideas.
Okay.
So there has to be a lot which needs to be done, but I think it is being done.
Yeah, so upskilling is the new trend and it has to be there in the student's life, I think.
Upskilling and lifelong learning.
And lifelong.
Because one of the things we have to realize is that the technology is changing so fast.
Right.
that even while we talk, I think there are some things which are going obsolete.
Yes,
and therefore, you have to stay ahead of the curve and
Yes.
continue to learn your entire life.
Right. I always wanted to ask one thing, that all the IIM students, they have good academics. They have cleared CAT. Even they have scored 95 percentile plus. That's why they have taken admission in IIMs. What make them different from each other during the campus placements? One gets a package of crore and one gets a package of 25, 30 odd lakh rupees. The academics are good. They are brilliant. But what is the difference among the two or three?
Sankal, one of the differences is the choices that they make.
Okay.
I mean, simply because a person is getting a package of 1 crore does not mean that that person is better
Yes,
than the person who's getting a package of 25 lakh, for the simple reason that the person getting 25 lakh may have chosen to work for an NGO. The
Okay.
person may have chosen to work for a startup because the person is looking for something which is different. For example, if you're looking at stability, you have some student loans to pay off, etc., then maybe you will look for a job that pays you a big package upfront. But let's say you are not much concerned about money. You are reasonably okay, either from your family side, or maybe you have worked before coming to an IIM, and therefore getting big money is not so important. But what you're looking for is building something. Then
Right.
that student is likely to take up a job with a startup, which will not pay much, but then you grow with the startup, and obviously you get the thrill of doing a lot of jobs. So I think one of the reasons could be this. Second, of course, could be the capability. That although they get the same inputs, their capabilities may be slightly different in terms of their either attitude or in terms of their aptitude.
Okay.
So I think that could be the second difference. And third difference at times is pure economic kind of a decision. For example, you may have chosen not to sit for an interview of a company because you're waiting for some other company, and for whatever economic reasons, the company either does not come or reduces the number of students that they're taking in. However, what I can assure you is that I think within a year or two, they do get into what they truly want to. And there is a substantial increase, even in terms of the narrow rubric of the packages that they get.
They got the opportunity of self-assessment during this course.
Absolutely.
Right. So we'll have quickly the rapid fire.
Uh-huh.
That will be having 2 options for each question. No answer, no option will be wrong. But that is your priority, or that is your wish. You can choose one.
Certainly. Shoot.
So the strong motivator for success for you, personal passion or recognition because of personal passion?
Personal passion.
Okay. For an aspiring entrepreneur, what is more critical? The ability to take risk or the ability to adapt failures?
I would have said both, but because you have asked me to choose one, ability to take risk.
Okay. For a management institute, what adds more value? Collaborations with leading global universities or partnering with top industry players?
Partnering with top industry players.
Okay. What defines a great professor? Extensive industrial experience or strong academic research experience?
Strong academic research.
Okay. For a leader, what is more challenging? Managing crisis or driving innovation?
Driving innovation.
Okay. In a tough negotiation, what is more challenging? Patience or persuasion?
Persuasion.
Okay. What offers more learning opportunities? Starting your own business or working in a diverse corporate culture?
Starting your own business.
Okay. And with which language do you connect more with yourself, like your conscience? Hindi or Sanskrit?
Sanskrit.
Okay. Nice question. And that is actually the rapid fire, because you prompted like all the options you choose very wisely. So coming to this, your routine, your habit. What is your routine all about? How you spend your day? Because I see so much of energy in you, and how you manage your things. So what kind of routine you follow daily?
So I wish I could follow a routine, but my life is such that I need to travel so much for my work. I like doing a whole lot of things that I don't have a routine.
Okay.
However, there are some things which I essentially do, and I necessarily do them. For example, I will not sleep till I have exercised for at least an hour every day. I will not sleep till I have written 500 words. And even if those words are garbage, even if they can't be published,
500 words.
500 words. And I
Okay.
will not sleep till I have read at least 10 to 15 pages of a book.
Great.
So this is an essential part of my routine, which I make sure that I do. Now, other than that, I have this habit of, I try to sleep early, but of course, as I said, the demands of the job are such that sometimes I cannot sleep early. But what I do is that I have this app setting on my phone, that my phone goes into the DND mode at 11 p.m.
Okay.
And it comes back only at 7 a.m. So between 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.,
Right.
I don't look at my phone unless we are going through some crisis.
Great.
So, for example, during COVID times, of course, my phone was
Yes.
on all the time because I wanted to be on the top of things. And there were times when,
Yes.
past midnight, I would have a word with my administrative team and so on and so forth. But I try to be in the DND mode because the morning time I keep for myself. So the first thing when I wake up in the morning is to actually have conversations with myself. There may not be conversations which are allowed, but I introspect, I reflect, and I think about whatever it is that I have done and whatever it is that I intend to do, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And likewise, before sleeping, I spend time with myself. So I think those are some of the common traits that I have, some of the common things that I have, at least in my routine.
That is actually fascinating, because if you're writing 500 words daily, and that is the culture what you have built, that is actually fascinating. Second, the book, if you're reading 15 pages throughout the day, like in a day, 15 pages if you're reading, that is something very different. It's not unusual.
I'm a voracious reader. I have my own personal library of more than 5,000 books.
More than 5,000 books.
Yeah.
There are many things to learn from sir, actually. So, coming to your book, The Negotiations, the Tata McGraw-Hill, what you have written, what are the key takeaways you want the reader to grasp from that particular book?
So
the aspiring leaders.
Yeah. So there are three things that I've really spoken about in that book by McGraw-Hill, Education. And one is, I look at negotiation, performance in a negotiation from what I call the 3S framework. One is negotiating skills. The second is negotiation style. The third is negotiation strategy. Negotiation skills are the set of strengths that you need to be a good negotiator, no matter what style you have, no matter what strategy you adopt. Negotiation style is your natural reaction to a situation of conflict. Okay. And negotiation strategy is the conscious choice that you make about how you're going to conduct the negotiation. Okay. So the three essential things which are there are the various negotiation skills, which is a five-dimensional network, five-dimensional thing that I've created of framework of negotiation skills: artfulness, diplomacy, detachedness, fair-mindedness, and sagacity. Okay. Then I talk about negotiation style as to how should you be aware of your own negotiation style. And then I have talked about, by using game theory and what I call the dual concerns model, yes, how do you make a conscious choice about how to conduct negotiation. And then subsequently, there's a follow-up part on the role of communication and persuasion in the art of negotiation.
Right. So what is your favorite subject, if I ask you, in the management gamut? Because there are around about 20 odd subjects in management, if you can see that. What is your favorite subject which can teach a new entrepreneur, a budding entrepreneur, something? Whether it is strategic management, research, marketing management, what?
Negotiation.
Negotiation.
Yeah, for me, it's always negotiation.
You have done PhD and you have done extensive research in that.
And I have actually practiced negotiation. So I'm a practicing negotiator. Okay. I negotiate on behalf of organizations. I negotiate on behalf of startups. And I also negotiate sometimes on behalf of individuals.
Great. So what is the key difference between negotiation and mediation then?
So mediation is a type of negotiation. In mediation, you become a third-party arbitrator.
Right.
So when I negotiate, and I'm negotiating with the person, it means that the issues which are there in negotiation are the issues that also concern me. But when I mediate, it would be like, let's say two of you have a problem, yes, and you have not been able to come to a resolution by negotiating between yourselves. Right. And therefore, you invite me to come and either help you in reaching a consensus agreement or make a decision after making you people talk. The latter part is called mediation.
Got it. Okay. Seeing your routine, sir, and seeing all these things, how you manage your professional life and the me time. Because I've seen you travel throughout the world. I've seen you trekking. I've seen you mountaineering. Even I wanted to listen to this Kilimanjaro, the highest peak of Africa. the experience of that. So how you manage the stuffs, managing personal and professional both?
So, Sankal, while I would have loved to have my professional work delineated from my personal work, in my case, the lines are too blurred. However, the one thing that I practice is mindfulness,
Okay.
which means if I'm here talking to you right now, I am not thinking about anything else.
Okay.
So nothing about my personal life, nothing about my professional life will come to my mind. I'm here completely talking and having this conversation.
Right.
So I think this is something that I practice. So when I'm doing my professional work, when I'm having a professional meeting, I'm totally there, irrespective of my personal circumstances.
Okay.
Likewise, let's say if I was, I lost my pet baby last year, but likewise, let's say if I was spending time with him, or if I was spending time with a friend, I would be totally there. I wouldn't be thinking about my professional commitments at that point of time. In fact, I put my phone on silent and put it away if I'm talking even to a friend.
Okay.
Or even if I'm listening to music, I make sure that my phone is away at that point of time. And therefore, this mindfulness is something that helps me. And talking about the Kilimanjaro experience, of course, it was a fantastic experience. I've been a trained mountaineer, and I've been fortunate enough to be trained by the best person one could ever imagine, Bachendri Pal. She's my mountaineering guru. And I had my first mountaineering expedition under the tutelage of Bachendri. But when we did Kilimanjaro is very different from the usual Himalayan ranges that I climb in. Because Kilimanjaro not only is the highest mountain in Africa, the Uhuru Peak that is, Kilimanjaro is world's tallest self-standing mountain.
Oh, is it?
It's a volcanic mountain, so there is no range.
No fold mountain. Okay.
Yeah, there's no range.
Okay.
Fold is the different category.
Okay.
So Himalayas are the young fold mountains, but Himalayas are a part of a range. So if you climb a peak there, for example, when I did the Everest base camp, when you are trekking, you can see many mountains around you. There's a beautiful scenery around you. Okay. But when you're climbing Kili, it's only Kili. There's nothing else to see. You just keep going on and on, watching Kili coming closer, and the Uhuru Peak coming closer to you. So that makes it a little tougher, of course, because you can't see, any other thing. And the second thing about why Kili is very tough is the final ascent. Okay. So when you do the final summit, you get up at about 11 in the night is when you start. And it takes almost 17 and a half hours to do the summit and to come back. 17 and a half hours of non-stop ascent and then final descent. So that makes it very challenging. And I've had several, but as I said, that I love mountaineering, I love adventure. So for me, it was a beautiful experience, a tough one, but very beautiful.
But that is actually fascinating experience because 17 and a half hours continuous.
Absolutely.
Without taking a break. Like how much do you sleep for these kind of occasions and events?
You don't get much sleep, during such expeditions. I mean, if you can get 3 to 4 hours, I think it's enough to rest you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And you are actually the evident of saying the scriptures, if I'll say, the Vedic scriptures, and you even brings the scriptures, the Vedas, the languages in the modern context of the management complexities even. You teach us keeping the whole gamut around. I wanted to listen about what are the shlokas you get drive from.
See, I've been reading Sanskrit scriptures ever since I was a child.
Okay.
So it comes to me as a family value because my mother is a Sanskrit scholar.
Okay.
My mother was in 12th when she got married and BA Part 1 when she had me.
Okay.
And after that, she has done her BA, B.Ed, MA, M.Ed, PhD, D.Lit in Sanskrit.
Right.
And in the scriptures. My mother's maternal grandfather, Pandit Krishan Lal Sharma, he was a Sanskrit scholar. And he used to run a Gurukul for girls, teaching them Sanskrit and Sanskrit scriptures in a place called Dalwal, and he was also the priest of the Katasraj temple, which now falls in Pakistan. And in 1947, they migrated to India, and therefore Sanskrit is something that I've gotten in my virasat. I have inherited it. So from Panditji, it came to my nani. From my nani, it came to my mother. And from mother, it came to me. Sanskrit happens to be my first language.
Even
I learned Sanskrit first, and
you can
simultaneously I
converse
learned
in
English.
Sanskrit, I think.
Yeah, I can speak
people
Sanskrit.
say that.
Yeah, I can speak Sanskrit.
Okay.
And so Sanskrit and English were my first two languages. And
Okay.
then came Hindi, and then came Bhojpuri, Punjabi, etc.
Right.
The rest of the local languages. So every scripture in Sanskrit has actually added value to my life. But
Okay.
my favorite, like you pointed out, is the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is something that I've used even for my own PhD. So for my PhD negotiation, I analyzed the entire Mahabharata and developed a framework of negotiating skills using the Mahabharata framework. And of course, like I said, within Mahabharata lies my favorite book, which is Gita. And every shloka of Gita is something that tells you something. So for example, if you look at the first shloka of Gita, it says, Dharm kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsavah mamaka pandavascha kim kuruvat Sanjay. Now, many people say, well, it's a normal shlok where Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjay as to what is happening in the war of Kurukshetra, what is happening at the battle site of Kurukshetra.
Right.
But no, one has to think a little deeper. Why? Because look at the first word. The first word is dharma. And what Dhritarashtra is saying is dharm kshetre kurukshetre. ये जो कुरुक्षेत्र का स्थल है, ये धर्म का स्थल है, अर्थात ये निर्णय करेगा कि धर्म उनकी तरफ था या धर्म हमारी तरफ है. And therefore, despite having a numerical superiority of 11:7, the Kauravas had 11 Akshauhani Sena and the Pandavas had 7 Akshauhani Sena. Despite this numerical superiority, it is Dhritarashtra who's concerned. It is Dhritarashtra who's worried. And he's worried why? Dharm kshetre. Because the result of this war will determine as to whose side the dharma was on. So this itself is fascinating, that you may have strength in terms of numbers, but if you don't have values on your side, if you're not sure that the morality is sitting on your side, then you will always be afraid. No matter how much achievement you may have, no matter how great you may be in terms of resources, etc. And then look at the final shlok. Yatra yogeshwarah krishno, yatra partho dhanurdara, tatra shrir vijyor bhutir dhruva, nitir matir mama. And if you look at the last word of Gita is mama. First word and the last word. This is what Gita is about. Mama dharma. Mera dharma kya hai? And the entire Gita is a vishleshan of mera dharma kya hai? Mera swadharma kya hai? And it is Krishna telling Arjun ki uska dharma kya hai? And through that reflection, you can figure out that what is your dharma, what is your swadharma. And that is what makes Gita very, very fascinating to me.
Very beautifully explained, because the starting word and the end word.
Absolutely.
And all is in between. Mera dharma kya hai?
Absolutely.
So many of the students are writing CAT examination this November. What should be the preparation? What should be the level of preparation to crack CAT first of all? What should be the mindset to write for the mathematical calculations of, say, like logical reasoning and English and vocabulary comprehensions? How should they prepare? Should they take a break for a year or so? Or should they prepare during the college time? What is the best strategy, and what kind of time they should devote, like 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours? There is some calculations for that to prepare for CAT examination?
See, my views are normally not considered as traditional views when it comes to things like this. First of all, I don't think that you should go for an MBA education right after your undergrad. I think you should work for 2-3 years and only then come into an MBA classroom, because you will be able to connect a lot of your practical experiences with what you are being taught. And that makes the MBA education more worthwhile. So that is my personal view, number one. Number two, I don't think you should quit your job to actually prepare. I didn't, but I'm not saying that I'm the paragon of how to crack CAT exams. But what I believe is that when you quit your job, or when you, like you said, that you take a 1-year break after your undergrad, etc., I don't think it is very easy to keep yourself motivated all the time. And there are more chances of you doing procrastination because you're not doing anything. So you think, well, all right, today I don't feel like it. Let me do it tomorrow. I'll start again the day after tomorrow, so on and so forth. But when you're working, you are already in an active mode. You don't need to spend X number of hours or Y number of hours. That is not what I think ought to be. What I think is, again, mindfulness.
Right.
That even if you're spending, say, 3 hours in your preparation, then those 3 hours you should be right there. You should not be thinking about other things. You should not get distracted by other things. So even if you put 3 to 4 hours while you are working or while you're studying, I think it's more than enough. What you need to do, the thing that I keep telling people is that, like you pointed out, there are 3 different sections. You have the quantitative methods, you have the verbal and comprehension, and then you have data interpretation and logical reasoning. The first couple of months, you should only write tests.
Okay.
You should only write tests. And then by analysis of those tests, you should try and figure out what are your problem areas. Where is it that you're making mistakes? And then go back to the basics.
Okay.
In those problem areas, do that for 2-3 months, and then again write tests.
Right.
For almost a month or so. Again, look at what are your problem areas. Are you taking too much time in a particular section? Are you making too many mistakes because you want to do them very, very quickly? And by doing this constant analysis and testing, I think that's how you prepare for your CAT exam.
Right. Again, mindfulness is the key.
Absolutely.
And second, the test series.
Absolutely.
To get the feedback from
Yeah.
it. Great. So one last question, one piece of advice, what would you like to give to the young entrepreneurs, managers, leaders, and the students even, what they should do to achieve what they actually dreamt of?
So the one advice I give to everyone is make sure that you are living a life which is built on your dreams, which is built on your expectations out of yourself, not somebody else's expectations. Don't try to live a life which is imagined by somebody else. Don't try to live a life which is based on what others expect out of you, even if those others are your close ones.
Right.
Always live a life which is built on your own expectations, because only then will you get a sense of fulfillment. That is number 1. Number 2, never be afraid of failures, because failures are a part of life. Simply because you fail, like I said, 1 or 2 things, that does not make you a failure.
Right.
You become a failure only the day you stop trying. So remember, when you are trailblazing, when will you not fall? I always keep talking in terms of my adventure and my mountaineering. When will you not fall? If you're walking on a path that has been walked by millions before you. But if you're trailblazing, if you're creating your own path, you will fall. You will stumble. There is nothing wrong in it. The only thing is you should have the strength in your conviction about your vision that even if you fall, you keep getting up and walking towards a path that you have chosen for yourself.
Right.
And the third thing is, values go a very long way. You may have 1 value, you may have 2 values, but make sure that you have a certain set of values which you claim that these are the values which you live by, but make sure that you're always living by those values. They go a long way in making you a good human being, and being a good human being is far more important than becoming a successful human being in the eyes of others.
Great.
So those are the 3 things I would talk about.
So very beautifully explained you have. And the qualities, the value system actually paved the way, and it actually goes long. Thank you so much, sir. And it was actually nice talking to you. And I feel that this is just the first session. I would like to continue this podcast, the series of the podcast with you in the coming days, in the coming months.
My pleasure, Sankalp. It was a delight talking to you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure.
This podcast is sponsored by eManthan Cyber Ado Research and Skills Foundation. And the whole conversation of the podcast is scripted in their monthly magazine, ResearchMate, a leading magazine driving excellence and innovation. You can also publish your content in the magazine. Contact details are there in the description. Get your copy now.